Hello, I'm Joshua Kitts of the Composed Dream Game RPG Marketplace. All the internets have been on fire for some time now with the OGL debacle that's been going on with Wizards of the Coast, and it seems like many people are looking for new games to try, new role-playing games to try, and maybe realizing that there is a far wider array of games out there than they had ever realized. Now, oftentimes people will give you recommendations for games that are in some ways very similar to Dungeons and Dragons, that they have classes and levels and some of the classic archetypes as those classes and some similar spells, and the mechanics are somewhat similar, like perhaps you're rolling a d20 still. But there is a very wide array of different games available, and one of the things I haven't done yet is actually I'm going to show a pan of some of the stuff we have at conventions and events, and I spend a great deal of time talking to Canadian local game stores, retailers, and at these events talking to people about why somebody might be interested in this game versus that game, and I wanted to provide some thoughts on that and also show off the interface that we have where you can order through us. Of course, I always want to encourage people, go to your local game store, see if they can get in some of these titles. Perhaps they can get them in from us or someone else, or similar titles. So one of the reasons, well, first of all, we do have some publishers who do have public 5e compatible material or OSR, and those folks are more likely to be directly impacted by whatever ends up happening with the OGL. So go ahead, go out and support them. We appreciate that. But one of the main reasons I want to encourage folks to try something outside their wheelhouse is because, to me, the best way to recreate that moment where you first played your first role-playing game, which for most people was probably D&D of one stripe or another, is to play a new game in perhaps a different genre or perhaps with quite different mechanics. And it again opens out that world of wonder, and it'll amaze you how different an experience can be and how different the different kind of stories that could be told and the different ways that you could look at things. So I am going to pull up our website and talk just a little bit here. Just give me one moment. And really, I really want to share that wonder with everybody. So, and that's why I started the marketplace, really. So I'm actually just going to go to composedreamgames.com. So if you land here, you'll see we have a forum where there's not a lot of activity there, but we'd love to have more folks come by and chat about Canadian games and games in general, role-playing games in general, some of the stuff we carry. And there's some stuff about my own games, and all over the place you can go to our RPG marketplace. So we're going to do that, and that's this right here. Local retailers can order from us directly at a nice discount, and you can also ship to them should you wish to, and they'll get a small credit to get stuff from us, and so on. So, but what makes you pick one game over the other? And there's usually, to me, three things that people look at. I'm going to click over to all products here. There's genre. So what kind of game is it, right? So I've split out dungeon fantasy, which is kind of the things that a lot of people do along the D&D lines or inspired by it. Fantasy, some generics, so a system that could play any kind of game, really. Got some horror, kung fu, modern, sci-fi, and superhero. So all of those are things that, hey, what kind of thing are you into? What kind of story are you into? Do you like superheroes? Do you like sci-fi? Do you like space sci-fi? How about kung fu, etc.? That's one avenue. The other is concept, and which is a little harder to delineate. Like it's a little bit more specific. What specifically is this game experience going to be about? And then the third is mechanics, the engine. What's the feel of the game? Rolling dice versus pulling cards versus just answering question prompts are all very, very different experiences at the table, and those things can be wonderful. So we'll go back to all products here. So we were talking a little bit about, game engine, and hey, we've got some 5e D&D supplements by some third-party publishers here. We have our Shiver archetype dice, which has something sort of akin to classes and levels in their archetypes. This is a horror cinema RPG by a UK publisher. We have some Forged in the Dark games, which are heist engines, and each of these it has a difference. So this is a fantasy city heist, and this is a sci-fi far future transhuman body jumping heist kind of game using, again, the Forged in the Dark engine, which has a particular approach to it. I should say that if it says PDF, then that's the price for the PDF. If it doesn't say PDF, that means we have a print version, and you can click in, and then you could choose whether you want the print version or the PDF version. And everything is in Canadian dollars, so you can also change that. And so the US dollar would be that, or you could pay in Australian, or you could pay in euro or pounds, etc. Or we have, say, the Runic game system, which has that sort of relatively heavy level of complexity to a game where you're also pulling runes, and it's very well supported with a bunch of different supplements by a Montreal area publisher. It's a Celtic and Viking Norse mythology based game. But I'd also add that a lot of games are a lot lighter and a lot easier to pick up. So Screenplay is a generic, and High Plains Samurai is a implementation of that. And this is a sort of a writer's table game where you have the GM as a director, and the players have a bit more authorial control. They're called writers in this game, and there's different implementations of that Screenplay engine. I would also probably point out that we have a large section of what I've just labeled as other bespoke. It usually means they're in that game, and we at least don't have other titles that use that engine, so they've been designed and they've put in that game, and that's it. And these, in general, what we might call indie RPGs, are going to be a lot easier to pick up and run. They tend to be relatively rules light. If your one experience is Dungeons and Dragons, then a lot of games are a lot easier to pick up. What tends to happen is you'll get 4 or 5 RPGs. You might buy 4 or 5 indie RPGs in a year and play 3 or even 4 of them, because they're relatively easy to play, and they're often geared a little bit more towards short campaigns. Not all of these are geared that way. A lot of them can support long-term play, but certainly our GM-less and one-shot games provide a very different experience. You're sort of meant to play them once, and it's a GM-less experience. And that's very different if you have never played something along those lines. Something like The Quiet Year or Post-Human Pathways both kind of just use prompts very differently in these cases, but prompts to nudge you along to make decisions and to tell a story collaboratively together. At Post-Human Pathways, that's multi-generational and in really just 3 different scenes across the lifespan of your life. So it's not multi-generational. It's it's across each of the characters' lifespans. which is very interesting. And the quiet year is you're playing a whole community, right? So these experiences vary very dramatically and inspire a spirit trying to become a god in the early days. So there's a lot of different experiences out there. And again, I feel like restating my earlier thesis, which is simply, again, the best way to recapture that magic that I've found, and one of the reasons I love playing all sorts of different games, is because playing something that is designed to capture a very different experience, well, it's that thing that gives you that magic back. It's another first. So, I hope that's inspired you to maybe pick up one of these games from us. Maybe try something that you hadn't considered trying before. And I hope you get to play more games. Good gaming.